Okay, so far we've been animating primarily by adding position keys and moving the object around on the X and Y axis. We've also done a tiny bit of rotation when we were working with puppeting and attaching a pendulum to a moving rectangle. But we haven't really done much with something like scale. So this next exercise we're going to be focusing on scale to make something look like it's pulsing. So I'm going to create a new composition by going to Composition, New Composition. We're going to name this Exercise 11. 5 seconds is fine. That's probably plenty of time. I'm going to hit OK. And what we're going to do is create a circle. I'm going to left mouse down and drag while holding the Shift key. And I do want it to be right in the dead center as best as I can make it. Click off, click on. I'm going to move the anchor point right in the center. So this is going to be important for how the object scales. We're going to want it to scale in the center, from the center. So let's try proportional grid. Let's put that object right in the center. And let's move the anchor point so that's right centered. Dead center. There you go. Okay. So let's get rid of the proportional grid. We don't need it now. Okay, so what we're gonna do is have the object shrink, then grow, shrink, and grow, like a pulse. But when we do it, we do want to include anticipation, overshoot, and settle in the scaling. So I'm going to do is close contents and open up transform. And let's start, we can start at this size. This size is fine. Now if you do want to have a different starting, like if you want 100% to be a different size, and you want to be able to go back to 100% at any time, but you want your 100% to be larger or smaller than this, then you can actually go into Contents, Ellipse, Transform, Ellipse 1, and you can actually change the scale in here, and that scales it in according to the contents. So all that means is I can close contents and the scale under transform remains at 100%. So if you're ever making any permanent changes to your object, like you want your object to be permanently smaller or permanently larger than it is, but you are going to be animating the scale as well, then I would suggest making those changes under contents, not under transform, just because then you're making a sort of permanent change to it, and 100% can still be your normal size for scale. So let's pause it for about 6 frames. Then I'm going to click on the stopwatch next to scale. Then I'm going to shrink it down. And I'm grabbing the corner, left mouse down and drag while holding the Shift key. And I can get an idea of how much it's shrinking by looking at the percentage. Okay, so it shrinks in. Now I'm going to have it expand out. Now as I scale out, it's scaling non-uniform, even though the little link symbol is appearing next to scale's numerical value. That's because I'm using the selection tool. If I hold down Shift while I'm left mouse down and dragging, it will scale uniformly. If I want to scale uniformly using the numbers, then by default it will scale uniformly unless I remove this link, and you can do it by checking it or clicking on it. So I'm going to have it overshoot and then settle. So we have, let's make it a little quicker. There we go. And then I'm going to pause, so we're at 20 frames. Let's pause until about 106 maybe. I'm going to hit this little keyframe, and that's going to place another keyframe with whatever information is already here. So that information is simply this, because we're not in the middle of an animation, we're at the end of one, there's no change. So these two have the exact same information. So that just makes it basically turns it into a hold. And then we're going to expand out and then scale down. I could actually scale it down to 100% if I wanted it to go back to 100. I actually want it to go a little smaller than that to overshoot. And then 100 to go back to normal. Let's see. bring the keys a little closer. Okay. Okay, we'll give another pause. I'm going to hit this keyframe. So again, this is just a keyframe with the same information as the key before because there's been no change. It's not in the middle of an animation. Then I'm going to shrink it down again. Pulse it out. And then bring it back. Hold it. Scale it up. Scale it down. And I know I'm under 100% because I can see it. I'm under its smallest size. And then go back to 100. Let's see. Okay. So again, it's a little mechanical. It could use some easing. So we can go into the graph for that. So let's soften this up. And we may need to adjust the timing as well, but let's go into the graph. And let's give this some, give it an easy ease to start with, and then kind of pull this out. Easy ease. Pull out. Okay. There we go. It's got a bit more energy. And pull this handle out. Let's have this do an easy ease in, not an out, because this is a pause. Okay, and I'm just going to be careful not to overshoot too much. Okay, easy ease out. And easy ease. Okay, so let's see how that beginning looks. There we go. So I was saying to keep it from going under, you could have it anticipate, but I'm not, or overshoot the other way. Let's see if it looks okay. It may or may not. I don't know if you even notice it. A little bit. I don't think there's enough time for it to work well right now. And it comes out. Let's pull this handle out. Easy ease. Pull this handle out. This one out. Easy ease in. Easy ease out. Easy ease. Easy ease. Okay, so let's see how that looks right now. Okay, and if it looks a little too aggressive, we could maybe space these out a little more. So let's bring this out. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little less aggressive. Let's move these out a little more. And move this one out. Pull out, pull out. Okay. There we go. It's a little less aggressive, a little friendlier. And let's take these. This one out. This one out. And these could use some easy ease out. Pull this up. This could use an easy ease. So an ease in both sides. Pull this out. And easy ease in. Or actually easy ease in general. There we go. And let's pull this out a little bit. so it has some time to settle. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So it's going from 100% down to 66.5%, and then it pulses up, and it eases to a stop. Well, sort of to a stop. It eases into this position, then immediately eases out of it. So it's not actually stopping. It only really stops when it finishes pulsing, and then it has this pause. Then it's at a stop. Okay, and if it looks a little too much change, maybe you could have this not be so drastic. We could just bring these numbers closer together. Well, actually, that is 74%. But this is at 95. So actually, let's change these and bring these up closer. There we go. There we go. And make this one a little shorter and ease in a little more gently, maybe. There we go. And if it still seems a little aggressive, we could bring these handles in a little bit so the easing doesn't last so long, so the middle portion isn't so fast. So we can try softening this a little bit and see how that looks. Okay, let's see if that makes it any softer. Okay, so that's a little bit of a softer transition. This one's more aggressive right here. We could give it more time to make the transition a little softer. And let's make the final position. Because I'm moving it around, I'm also moving it vertically as well as horizontally, which is why the numbers are changing. Why it went from 100 to 109 is because I nudged it up a little bit while I was trying to move it stage right. And let's make these a little smaller. So this should be a little less aggressive. There we go. It's a little softer. And let's see, maybe let's space these out a little further. So it has a little more time to settle. Let's make sure both of these are 100. Okay, it looks like that didn't change. Oh, and this is to move over. And move these over. Okay. Easy ease in. Easy's out. Okay. And there we go. Now if you don't want it to overshoot, you just want to soften into the position, you just bring this up. And let's make this 105 or 100. And change this to linear. Linear. Should we even remove that one? And give this one an easy ease in. And that's if you don't want to overshoot. It did look like it jumped at the end. And that's because this key is 105. So we just turn this into a linear. And then it stays. And that's if you didn't want there to be an overshoot. If you don't want there to be an overshoot, you can bring it down a little. And then ease out, ease in, and you can have a little bit of a settle. There we go. and that is using shapes. Let's change this name, circle. Using a shape and animating the scale feature to make the object pulse larger and smaller. And we're also using the graph editor to soften the movements a little bit and give it more ease when it's coming into or out of each of the positions. And we do have some frames that have the same information, and so that's giving it a hold, a brief hold, with no in-betweens in between them, like no change in between them. They're just staying still before they move again. So that is animating with scale.